Emma Scheller, and I am the WSA VP for Student Affairs. So I'm representing Western Student Association today, and I will be your moderator for the program today. So the purpose of this program is really to increase the already wonderful collaboration between students and staff that exists to help promote diversity and inclusion on our respective campuses, both KVCC, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, and WMU Western Michigan University. So we have brought some really excellent panelists in today who will do a really great job sharing some of the initiatives that they are making happen to help increase diversity and inclusion on our respective campuses. Yeah, so we are really looking forward to it. So I'm going to start the panelist portion, and we're going to have each of our panelists go through and kind of share a little bit about themselves and what they're working on and what they're doing to help promote diversity and inclusion. So we will allow students to ask questions, and you can do so through YouTube Live. Please hold your questions until after all panelists have spoken. If you need to send them out there, I guess maybe that'd be okay, but we're going to then be selecting questions that will be given, and then our panelists will answer. So yeah, we are going to try to get to as many questions as possible, but not all of them will be answered. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from our panelists. If you want to start with Provost Bott.
Good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Bott, and I'm the Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs at Western Michigan University. And I'd like to begin by thanking Trice Batson and Dr. Keenan McCorkle and Dr. Susie Nagel-Bennett for organizing today's opportunity to work with our great partners at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, but also hear from our students at both of our institutions, because that's one of the things that we know is absolutely critical, is listening to our students' experiences and developing shared priorities that reflect both the short-term impactful needs and long-term planning to achieve inclusivity on our campuses. I'm joined today by three of my fantastic deans who represent truly the commitment across all of our divisions to doing better. And so while we have many, many things to share at a high level, I wanted to introduce just a couple of things that we're doing across the divisions at Western Michigan University as we strive for inclusivity, recognizing we have a ways to go. So some of the things that we've done at the institution most recently is we've made our admissions process test optional. We know that that has a really important implication for students and making college more accessible. And we've made significant policy changes in our financial aid office to distribute more need-based aid than we have. And that should have a significant impact on our students' ability to enroll and stay enrolled come fall of 2020. One of the things that we have been working on and will do in partnership with our students, again, as we generate priorities together, is to work on the recommendations that were generated by a special group on campus of advisors, students, faculty, and staff to help us understand better ways to really close the achievement gap and ensure that we at Western Michigan University are living our mission that founded our institution over 100 years ago, that all may learn, because we know that we have, as I said, a significant progress to make on that account. But I look forward to hearing from our students today. And with that, I turn it over to the Provost at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, Dr. Peter Linden.
Thank you, Dr. Bott. And just let me start by saying what a pleasure it is to be here today and be part of this conversation. And I'm also thrilled to be participating with three of our own great deans, Patty Henning, Paige Egan, and Billy Reynolds. So we're glad to be here. Thanks again to Dr. McCorkle and to Trice Batson for putting this venue together today. Consistent with our college's mission, values, board priorities, and strategic plan, there is ongoing work to grow and encourage opportunities, promoting inclusion, diversity, and equity at the Valley, Kalamazoo Community College. The examples are many, but I will defer to my colleagues when they have time to share greater details to what within the respective divisions, but I can provide a few initial examples, and they include our guided pathways and gateways to completion initiatives, our excellence in academic advising, how that's modeled across campus, and the fact that I've had the pleasure of designing and facilitating an equity by design faculty as part of the tenure track faculty. So that was a very rewarding experience in and of itself. And also, there's expanded marketing and outreach efforts to the pools for faculty and staff across the campus, knowing we're focused on the academic faculty, diversified curriculum, diversified teaching strategies result in better prepared students overall. So from all that, you can see that the framework is in place for continued growth and improvement. It's a work in process, and we're committed to that. And the work of our deans, faculty, and staff across campus reflect that commitment and that work to date. And having said that, I'm going to turn it over now to Dean Deshpande, colleague at Western Michigan.
Good afternoon. I'm Satish Deshpande, Dean of the Hayward College of Business, and thanks a lot for allowing me to participate in this forum. We in the College of Business believe that there is great power in education and learning when it comes to thawing hate. So actually, way back in the 1990s, we put in the first course on managing diversity in organizations. And I remember at that time, the first question we had to answer was, what's the difference between diversity and affirmative action? And we certainly have come a long way. You may not know this, but the Hayward College of Business has AACSB accreditation. Only 10% of the business schools in the United States have that. And every 5 years, our accreditation body comes in and investigates us and checks us out. And one of the things they look closely at is diversity and inclusion, what we teach. So one of the things we do in the College of Business is both in our graduate and undergraduate programs, talk about why diversity and inclusion makes good business sense. And there's enough research to show that it has an impact on market share growth, return on investment, it fosters innovation. And one of the leading journals in this area is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And the associate editor of the journal, which looks at landmark research in diversity and inclusion, is from the Hayward College of Business. And one of the things we're doing now is redoing our undergraduate curriculum and our MBA. And Chris Stamper, who is the associate editor, is leading our undergraduate, the changes in our undergraduate curriculum and other things. So one of the things we are talking about is requiring implicit bias training for all our students, because what happens is a lot of these MBA classes and undergraduate classes, you have people working on teams and groups and other things. And it is important that they go through this training, like we all do as faculty members when we are on search committees and other things. What I thought I would do is give you a flavor of things I do as a dean. We have a multicultural meet and greet every fall. I have lunch with students, CETA Scholar students. I send students to different conferences. So for example, we have the National Association of Black Accountants. So I send them to their regional conference, send folks to the Black Pre-Law Conference, United States Hispanic Leadership Institute. I have worked with a number of my alums to create scholarships for students of color. And we also offer mentorship by our diverse alumni to be mentors and provide scholarship for our students. So one of the things we do in the Hayward College of Business is we guarantee, and this is because of COVID, we are guaranteeing all our incoming freshmen virtual externship, which means you could be in Kalamazoo and you could be working on an externship with someone in Silicon Valley. And so stuff like that. I also give every student a $2,000 scholarship to study abroad, because in the College of Business, it's important to be global and study abroad. And one of the study abroads we have is in Ghana, Africa. We like to be in every continent. So if you spend a semester abroad, you get $2,000. If you go on a faculty-led program, you get a $1,000 scholarship, no questions asked. And of course, we have a diversity and inclusion committee who advise me on how can we make this campus most welcoming. And a number of things they have recommended, like let's have a meditation room so that our Muslim students have a place for prayer, and we have done that. Let's have a lactation room for women, and we have done that too. So I have a committee which talks to me what needs to be done, but certainly we have ways to go. But I thought I would give you a flavor of some of the things we are doing in the Hayward College of Business. And now I'll pass it on to Dean Egan from KVCC.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paige Egan from Kalamazoo Valley Community College, where I am the Dean of Math and Sciences and co-lead for Guided Pathways. In the roles of Guided Pathways as well as Math and Sciences, we work as a college and as a division to hold up our mission of the college. And the mission of Kalamazoo Valley states that we are committed to enriching the lives of our students and communities through quality educational programs and services. And so in terms of Guided Pathways, something that reaches across the college, where we are looking at intentionally how we set the path and how to develop students holistically in their journey through Valley, and then on into their chosen careers or on into their chosen college or university of transfer. The 4 pillars for Guided Pathways include clarify the path, enter the path, stay on the path, and ensure learning. Well, at first it may not appear that on the surface is connected to equity, but it has everything to do with equity. If we can help students in a fair and equitable way enter our college, see the possibilities, find a path, clearly lay out the path, and decode a higher education ease, make it accessible, then we're doing our work that we're here to do. In that process across the college is also how do we look at developing students holistically? What goes on in the classroom, the learning that goes on in the classroom, as well as the learning that goes on as being a part of the community at Kalamazoo Valley, a part of the community as we look with our partnerships with Western Michigan University, as well as being a part of the larger Kalamazoo area community in that development. Specifically with Math and Sciences, we have taken a look at a number of different opportunities over the last few years, one of which had looked at course redesign, particularly with a program called Gateways to Completion. And Gateways to Completion, we focused on our Math 116 intermediate algebra. We also partnered with Western Michigan University on this, which was a wonderful partnership, and we continue to bear the fruits of that labor and partnership. In that, I would say the process, while we focused on one particular math course, it really did help inform us across all our curriculum, and it gave us some tools in order to create conversations and meaningful conversations and actions around various pieces dealing with growth mindsets, both growth mindsets and how we foster growth mindsets with our students, but also to look introspectively with ourselves and how we may approach curriculum differently and what that may look like, and how do we do wraparound services for our courses that is more meaningful and equitable across times of day, how we offer classes, online environments, face-to-face, hybrid, all of that is taken into consideration. In addition to this, we mirror this with data, looking at our the rates of students with getting D's or failing or withdrawing from the course. And we watch that holistically, but also we disaggregate the data and take a look at some of our most vulnerable populations and really make sure that the improvements that we're doing are that we can target on that equity piece of making sure that we're moving the needle for our most vulnerable and underrepresented populations. I really applaud the work faculty have done and committed to this, and also the continued work that they're doing as they're working with their colleagues in other conversations. Recently, we've embarked on another partnership with Western is the Excellence in Academic Advising. So as we begin that, we're extremely excited. There's connections in the academic end as well as our student services end. And I would be remiss in saying that really our work with the G2C and what we did in math, and you may hear later with Dean Reynolds, with what they did in econ, really laid the foundation for us to be partners with the EAA. Again, it's all based on equity and urban ecosystems. So we're very excited to be a part of that. As far as our placements, we've been able to really take a hard look at our placements, particularly with math. And we have shifted our practices toward an ALEX placement, which before we were able to have a placement and just hand over a score and say, good luck. And now with this particular tool, yes, there's a score, but what it does is creates an individualized learning module plan for the student. And so we can wrap around services, tutorial services, as well as encouragement. And there's an action to be taken as opposed to just a number. And we find that extremely important as we continue to build relationships with our students and move forward. From a division standpoint, with the faculty and staff in math and sciences, work really hard with professional development, opportunities, conversations, being brave to have those open conversations and welcome those conversations. And also setting the expectation that that's is to happen. We look at the language that we have, the empathy that we share, and the expectations that we set out for students in terms of the equity, diversity, and inclusion. And it is a force, kind of the center of any conversation we're having. We go back to how does this affect the student? What does this mean for the student? And then personally, through this journey and being the Dean of Math and Sciences is really looking at my continual growth and my willingness to request and accept feedback and growing from that feedback, growing from mistakes, and the willingness to challenge others in calm times and adverse times. So at this time, I would welcome the comments and we'll hand it over to Dean Daniel Guyett. Thank you.
Okay, Mike. Hello, I'm Dan Guyett, Dean of the College of Fine Arts at WMU, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this important panel. Fine Arts has a long history of arts education, activism, equity, and community engagement. These are core to our college, and we are only one of 10 universities nationally with all of our programs nationally accredited. I want to address my comments in two parts. Firstly, practices in diversity and inclusion around the college traditionally, really in the last couple of years. And secondly, what we have started as a result of recent events in our lives and looking forward. Before March of this year, we had a mix of practices around the college in regards to diversity and inclusion. While there is a diversity and inclusion committee in the college that reports to my office, their work was largely data gathering, survey analysis, and small scale training recommendations. The new chair of that committee, who started earlier this year, had pushed strongly for funding for support for such things like erase training across the college, and commitments from my office, the chairs and directors in the provost's office allowed that to be scheduled in March, a week after we shut down. Obviously that was postponed, and but we do plan to reschedule. Most of the other work happens in a variety of ways across the 4 units within the college. This is a mix of training, workshops, professional development, events, programming, guest artists, student recruiting, and to a lesser degree, hiring and curricular changes. A few examples. For our recruitment and auditioning, we hold our auditions at specific locations in Detroit, Chicago, where we have schools with high diversity, such as Mosaic Youth Theater in Detroit, events in Chicago Public Schools, recruiting directly at Chicago School of the Arts, one of the only public arts school in Chicago, Cass Tech in Detroit School of the Arts. We also offer scholarships in a variety of ways to these students. For guest artists, we bring in the diversity of artists of color, actors, directors, musicians, choreographers, and visual artists who also identify as gay or transgender. Recent artists include Reginald Edmonds, Universus, It's an ensemble whose work most commonly references Black lives. When we have guest artists in town, they are most often here for several days, and they go into our classes and provide workshops and speak to those various classes and make other presentations. Other guests included this last few years, Sean Leonard, African-American artist and performer. We sponsored guest activist Angela Davis. We also add collections to our university library, scripts and art collection. For example, this last year, the University Art Collection purchased a print by internationally known African-American artist Emma Amos that will now be a part of our permanent collection. We also support students with creative scholarships in different ways. This last year, art students created a student organized exhibition which focused on student artists who are LGBT. And the students created work specifically to express that community. We also had an exhibition a couple years ago called On the Inside Out, a show that examined the nuanced inside-out boundaries so deeply pertinent to prison life, as well as the circumstances and consequences surrounding mass incarceration in the United States today. Obviously, a large number of the subject matter focused on persons of color. Awareness and training include guests that come in, such as Sarah Jacobs from Out, Proud, and Safe, working with transgender populations. And Kenlana Ferguson from our own K College, Arcus Center for Social Justice, who brought in to facilitate conversations on microaggressions. Our other programmings include events like theater productions like Gem of the Ocean by August Wilson, and Angels in America. And in conjunction with that, we brought in the AIDS quilt and a panel discussion led by CARES. Works that explore social justice, Check Your Privilege, a devised show, that means a created show that we created ourselves, that explored privilege and its impact on the campus and our community. And 7 Passages, a story of gay Christians, a devised show that was built from interviews of 120 gay Christians in Southwest Michigan. Shows that directly reference Black Lives Matter, Black Lives, Black Words, produced twice in collaboration with Face Off Theater, a local theater group, describes their work as an artistic movement that spans across countries and continents, in which Black narratives are tooled by and complete control by Black artists, and the mission in mind to empower all audiences. Looking forward, despite these efforts in the college to address issues of diversity and inclusion, it's clear we need a much more strategic and comprehensive plan going forward. 3 weeks ago, I started meeting with our Diversity and Inclusion Committee with weekly meetings to start that process. We have a plan in development that will have short, medium, and long-term goals. Short term will be regular, sustained, and required training and professional development for faculty, staff, and students. Medium term will be enhancing our guest artists, speakers, and events to have them more embedded with diversity goals across our college. And long term, to revise our curriculum to embed diversity throughout courses, rather than 1 or 2 courses that every student takes on those subjects. Our goal is to have this plan done and submitted to the provost and university for endorsement and funding before classes start this fall, so we have a sustainable set of goals in place. I'm also in the process of creating a CFA Student Diversity Advisory Council, which I will chair. And yesterday I spoke with one of the first students I invited to join that group. He's in the process of creating a new RSO on campus called the Dalton Diversity Directive. Dalton is where music and dance is housed on our campus. We decided that the president of that new RSO will have a permanent seat on my student advisory board, along with the faculty chair of the College Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Each unit will have student representation with the goal of providing a voice for students and college-wide diversity. That student advisory board will also have input on the new college-wide diversity plan. Thank you for giving me a few moments to share some of these thoughts and ideas.
All right, I'm next. I'm Patty Henning. I'm the Dean of Instruction for Health, Career, and Sustainable Food Programs at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. Thank you very much. I really am honored to be able to participate on this panel. I am very proud to work at an institution that has set its focus on increasing and embracing diversity, inclusivity, and equity in the learning environment for our students and also in the work environment. To reach this, Kalamazoo Valley has taken multiple directions and interventions from all the way from revamping our hiring practices to include diverse hiring teams, to many services that we provide to help minority students and students from underserved populations so that they can gain entrance into our college and to help those students persist and succeed and graduate. Since I only have a few minutes, I'd like to address measures we are taking to increase diversity of students admitted into our registered nursing program, and also measures being taken to improve the success of our students in completing that program. Acceptance into our nursing program, like most other registered nursing programs across the country, really is highly competitive. Also, like most other nursing programs, acceptance into the program has been strongly based upon grades and grade point averages. Basing acceptance solely or primarily on grades has definitely had a negative impact on diversity. Across our country, annually, approximately 50,000 qualified applicants are turned away from nursing programs. We are currently exploring changing to what is called a holistic admission process. And that is a process that will take into account the whole person and not just grades. Variables taken to account include, in addition to grades, community involvement and service, life experience, and work-related experiences. This model does take into account the whole person. We look forward to exploring this model, and hopefully we're at the beginning stage, but we really think that it's going to lead to make admission to our program more accessible and fair to all students and boosting diversity among the student group. To promote the success of our nursing students once they're admitted to our program, and this also includes our other health career programs, we are taking an approach that focuses on building personal, trusting relationships with our students from the point of admission and actually pre-admission all the way to graduation. We want our students to be confident and at ease so that they are willing to share their unique needs and barriers that they face that, if not alleviated, will endanger their journey to succeed. Once we are aware of a barrier, whether it's economic, childcare needs, transportation, or lack of access to needed technology, we can then mobilize the many services offered at Kalamazoo Valley to help the student alleviate the barriers and to support the students to persist and succeed. In the past year, I have been involved in many situations where awareness of need came from a trusting relationship between a teacher or staff and a student, and as a result, services were mobilized, barriers were alleviated, and the student continued to progress in the program. Another item I'd like to share is that I think has been really good for the success of all of our students, including the minority students and underserved population, is that we are piloting a program of learning assistance. And what this is a specialized tutoring program where we actually employ our graduates to be specialized tutors to work specifically in our programs of emergency medicine, respiratory care, and also nursing. And these learning assistants work directly with high-risk students all the way from the beginning of the program to the end. It has been highly successful, and it has led to the success of many of our students. Anyway, there's a lot, we realize that we have work to do to enhance and embrace and diversity, but I really feel that our college is on a really great path, and I believe that we're working together and we're going to see some really positive change in the future. And
Hi, I think I'm next up. I'm Carla Koretsky. I'm the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences at Western Michigan University. And I'm going to start by just talking very briefly about two initiatives that spanned beyond the College of Arts and Sciences and across all of Western Michigan University. These are two new initiatives that are focused on diversifying our faculty, which is also a goal within the strategic plan specifically of our college. So the first of these is a National Science Foundation funded advanced grant. So the advanced program is a longstanding program at the NSF that is intended to diversify STEM faculty. It was really begun focusing on gender diversity in STEM, and it has now really broadened to look at underrepresented faculty, especially women of color within the STEM professorate. And so we joined forces with 3 other institutions, North Dakota State, Iowa State, and Michigan Tech, all of which had previously had advanced programs on their campuses and developed programs intended to diversify their faculty. And so the intent of this particular grant, which we just received this past year, is to bring those programs across the institutions and specifically to Western Michigan University. So we will be bringing a chairs and directors training program, which is focused on issues of bias and diversity, equity, inclusion, to help our chairs and directors understand how they can better support a more diverse faculty in our college and really across Western Michigan University. The second program we'll be bringing is an Advocates and Allies program, which is intended to train and engage especially white men to understand issues of bias and to really serve to support and to look for and to counter issues of bias among faculty, students, and staff at the institution. We will also be instituting a cross-institutional mentoring program so that especially women of color can find other women to support them from other institutions, knowing that our numbers are small at many of the institutions. This is a way for us to develop cross-institutional support systems for our faculty. And then we're also going to be developing a caucus program, which will bring events and training and a lot of sharing of ideas across our campuses and hopefully also including other campuses. So this is really intended as a program to create systemic institutional wide change. It's focused on STEM, but the idea is if we make these changes in STEM, they will equally impact non-STEM areas as well. The second program that I wanted to touch on is also one which is intended to diversify the faculty. It's also National Science Foundation funded program called Includes, and as part of the Includes program, there's something called the Aspire Alliance Network. And last summer, 3 vice presidents, so Jen Bott, Candy McCorkle, Terry Kinsey, and I wrote a proposal which was accepted for Western Michigan University to join a cohort of 20 institutions in the second year of this program. And so again, this is a program which is intended to diversify STEM faculty broadly, but really to bring systemic institutional change to impact all faculty. And so what we are doing in this program is we're beginning with a self-assessment of the practices that we use right now to attract, to recruit, to hire, and to retain diverse faculty. And so we're looking at both quantitative and qualitative data to see where there are gaps in the practices that we have in place, where we can do better, and to start to implement that. We'll be creating action plans with timelines for implementation in coordination with the other institutions in our cohort. And so bringing best practices across institutional boundaries. Within the College of Arts and Sciences, I've also focused quite a bit on bias training of chairs and directors because they have such a large impact on faculty, staff, and students. So we brought in a professional facilitator last year to do a training program over the summer. I had intended to follow that up with a program called Power Play this year, and unfortunately with the pandemic, we've had to postpone that, but I hope that that will be coming back soon. Our Diversity and Inclusion Committee has been very interested in developing a train the trainer approach and really developing a cadre of faculty who can work with their peers to do bias training in a really broad systemic kind of way. And the Provost's office has actually funded a faculty fellow to work on that, and College of Arts and Sciences helped with that initiative as well. Unfortunately, the workshop was planned for this spring and it's now been postponed to fall, but we're still looking forward to having that train the trainer model come to campus. And then I wanted to just quickly mention, we also have been very active with the Gateways to Completion program that was mentioned before, trying to enhance student success in large math and science programs. we have a number of programs that are really intended to bring important content to our students. So when I came in as dean a few years ago, our Africana Studies program was on hold. It was closed actually to new students. That is no longer the case. We relaunched our African American and African Studies program 2 years ago, and that program is growing in enrollment, which is something I think is really important and I want to continue to support. We also have recently launched a new minor in Latinx and Latin American Studies, another area that we did not have a formal program in previously. Our sociology department recently renovated, really overhauled their curriculum in criminal justice to focus on social justice. And I think that's been a really important change as well. And that change is just coming online right now. And then I just wanted to point to one other program that's not in any of our 3 colleges, the STEP program in the College of Engineering and Applied Sciences. That's another National Science Foundation funded program. And I sat on the advisory board of that program for a little bit, and I was very impressed by the enormous gains that program made in really reducing achievement gaps between historically underrepresented students and majority students, especially between white men and men of color in the College of Engineering. We still have a ways to go for women in the College of Engineering, unfortunately. But part of why I raised that is I think one of the things that was very successful in that program was a cohort approach. And so we've been also looking at that as a possible model to bring forward in the College of Arts and Sciences to try to address some of those achievement gaps that we see between different groups of students. So that gives you kind of a flavor for some of the work that we're doing. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it off now to Dean Reynolds at KVCC.
Thanks, Carla. Hey, I'm Billy Reynolds, Dean of Liberal Arts at KVCC. I'll just talk about a few items. Right up front, just in the past several months, we've changed or revised the placement model for English and reading. And so it now includes high school GPA. And so I think that provides a little bit more flexibility for our incoming students. They don't just have to have a traditional placement score. Another really big area where we focused a lot of energy in the past 6 or 7 years is to transform the traditional developmental English model. As you all know, many students at the community college place into developmental education, and that significantly impacts their ability to graduate in timely fashion. So the first area we're really focused was upper level developmental English. We created a co-curricular program that was designed at the Community College of Baltimore County. And so basically the students in those who take what we call our AMP sections, they take the upper level developmental English class and the freshman composition course at the same time with the same instructor, and the developmental English course is as it's low enrolled, so we can focus on individual student needs and building community. It totally makes sense, this model does, because it really addresses students. They need to see that the developmental course is relevant to their overall goals while they're in college. So taken at the same time, it really increases their ability to get through freshman writing and then on to their sophomore level courses. So once we finished that program, we started working on our lower level developmental English course. And for that, we struck on this idea of what we called rapid review. So students in the first 3 weeks of the semester, they do a lot of review, they do a lot of writing, they brush up on some grammar and punctuation, and then they retake the placement test. And at that point, they can place into the upper level developmental English course, or in some cases, jump straight into college writing. And the department, Cheryl Ahmed and I, we spent a lot of time overhauling the schedule and creating a lot of second 12-week sections of upper level developmental English and college writing, so those students could seamlessly transition into those courses. Another big area of focus has been on our first year writing course. Gosh, a lot of our students, they show up at community college. They really don't have a lot of academic and career goals. And so this course has been really important. We've recruited a lot of full-time instructors who have a lot of experience and can kind of show students, you know, how to navigate their college, just the whole college environment. The other really key part here for the first year experience course is there's a comprehensive mandatory career advising that we infuse into FYE courses. And this is a course that's all undecided FIDIAC students are required to take. So I'm going to transition a little bit and just briefly mention a few other areas where we've focused a lot of our energy. So one of the things I noticed when I started in 2013 is there was no gender and women's studies program, and it was something I really wanted to get started. Western has a wonderful program, and thanks to Paige Egan, a colleague, we were able to get that program up and running a couple of years ago and hire a full-time faculty member to lead that program. So we're really excited about that. Another faculty member, Julie Stotsko, she leads the Visiting Writers program, and it features an array of writers from around the country. We were set to have Tommy Orange visit in March before COVID hit. He had his novel, his first novel came out a couple of years ago, and it focuses on the urban life of Native Americans. It's set for San Francisco, and I think our students are really excited about Tommy's visit. Since our Dr. Washington, our president, started, he's really focused on community engagement, and it's in the area of arts. We've been more intentional about our collaborations with the KIA and the Black Arts Cultural Center, and we're looking forward to continuing to partner with those two excellent organizations in the years to come. And just on a personal note, I can't not say anything, at least touch on what's happened in the last month. It's been intense for all of us. It's left us speechless. And so I think for me, trying to be more intentional about developing new partnerships at work and in the community is really important to me. And then just keenly recognizing the need to have a diverse group of people at the table when we're making decisions. So I'll stop there and continue to listen. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you all panelists for letting us know what you are up to. There is a very active conversation happening on the live chat, and I am trying to quickly write questions and weed out questions. Before I start with the questions, I did want to let students know that some of you are asking questions about public safety. Some of you are asking questions about housing. We will have two more discussions like this, one next Saturday on the 27th, which will be with student affairs administrators from both schools, and one on July 5th, which will be with public safety from both schools. And yes, invitations will go out to students to participate. So I am going to save those questions for the two more appropriate discussions where they can be better asked. So for now, what I'm going to do is ask some of the questions, and I will try to keep up with what students are actively typing right now. The first question is going to go, actually this can go to any one of our panelists. What is being done to provide justice for students who face violence on our campuses? Were you all able to hear me?
So Candy, is the question related to a student who may experience violence right on any one of our campuses?
Yes, I think the student didn't point it to anyone, but it was just what's being done to provide justice for students who are facing violence.
And I think we're probably all being so very polite. Oh, I'm sorry. So you go.
So I'd say in general for us, we have it comes down to relationships with staff, with faculty, and so we have a process. You know, once it's identified, if there is a conversation, we do have licensed counselors as part of our counseling and advising, which I'm sure we'll go more into next week. That we would connect our student with, in addition to our normal Title IX process, depending upon the nature of what has happened. We also have our public safety that is on campus. So it kind of depends on the nature of what has gone on, but we do have a number of resources, and there are a number of I guess continual developments and information that goes out, so folks know if anything has changed as far as the process to connect. But it's really that connection and people within the college being able to connect to students and being able to listen and move it forward and not sit silent.
Right, and I would echo what Paige just said. It comes down to processes that are in place, the relational piece as well. Relationship is key, but also affording the resources that are needed too. Knowing that those resources that speak to specific needs of students are there, they are deployed, and knowing that that's very much more times than not contingent on the relationships that all of our faculty and staff have with our students.
I was gonna jump in and add just briefly. You know, I think we as our friends at KVCC we have a variety of offices that help. We have Title IX, we have our Ombuds office, and we have our Office of Institutional Equity. But I think one of the key challenges for our students who have faced discrimination or violence is feeling safe and coming forward, and feeling there won't be retribution or retaliation for sharing experiences or instances with another student, or perhaps with the faculty member. And I certainly don't want to speak for deans who are quite committed to this and can speak for themselves, but all of us share a desire to know and act. And so working through our processes and making sure that if something happens, the department chair is informed, the deans are informed, the provost is informed, student affairs. There are lots of avenues for help, and students are protected from retaliation. I think it's important that our students recognize the options they have and the protections they have to share and let us help them manage these experiences and ensure that they don't happen for others. That's all I can.
I am going to reread that question because the student who posed it felt that it was misrepresentation of the question. It is a very lengthy question. I was trying to edit so that for time's sake, but I will try to shape this question in a form of a question. So the way it was stated was the student wants to talk about justice for students who face violence or discrimination. Minority students know that taking established path to justice feels like a war of attrition. Marginalized students have less time to jump through hoops that may not bring results. And so the actual question is, how are you willing to facilitate justice?
guess I'll jump in since people are quiet right now. I just wanted to reiterate what Provost Bott said. I think all of us are very committed to helping, but we can't help when we don't know. So I think the most important message I have is to please inform us and don't hesitate. I entirely understand the problem of being asked to do more and more and more, and the time and the emotion and the investment that it takes to come forward is enormous. But it's important because it helps not just the person who comes forward, but the whole community. So we will help you. We will make sure there's no retaliation. We want to know because we can't help when we don't know. So please, as hard as it is, I guess my plea is to come and tell us when there are things we need to know and that we can fix.
Comments to that question before we move on to the next? Okay.
Yeah, Dr. McCorkle, let me speak to something, from a personal color as a minority male. This is Trice, by the way. I think what I kind of got out of that question too, underlying in there, is a situation of trust, right? So if we don't trust, and how do we build the trust in our public safety offices as well as our overall campus community for folks of color to come forward and trust that we will be given the proper process, giving what is now being taking place over the last few weeks and things that are being exposed. So that's what I'm picking up out of that. And if I'm wrong, but that's what triggered that was triggered there.
Second part of that question was, how are we as institutions making it easier for students to reach out to inform us when something is going on and even know who they should speak to on these matters? So how are we making students aware of who they can reach out to, and how do we make the process a little easier for students?
Well, piggybacking what Trice just shared, that element of trust is all important. For a student to feel comfortable with sharing an experience such as what was described with any member of the team is very important. It's not limited to just a certain segment of the team or a person in the team, but knowing that the trust is there and there's a safe place to actually communicate that out to at any time. As I believe Carla said moments ago, the need for folks to know that we don't, unless it's communicated, we're not aware of it. And it speaks to the need for the trust factor and the need for every member of our team being at a place and establishing that line of communication. Here again, it goes back to relationship once again, and the trust piece, and following up when something of that nature is communicated to one of our team members.
If I may add, just talk to someone you feel most comfortable with. It could be an academic advisor. It could be someone from the Career Center. It could be a faculty member, because all of them know that if something like this comes, once they're informed, they need to come and see us, who are the deans, and then we will guide you as to what the process is and who to talk to. But like some of the other folks have said, you got to tell us, because if you don't tell us, we don't know what's going on. And if we do have some bad eggs, we need to know and take corrective action therein.
And I think one of the comments, this is a comment, and it's been stated several different ways by students based on that question and the response to that question, is students, and I think Trice, you addressed it, feel that students of color and those who are being oppressed, they should not have to be the ones to always speak out, that we as administrators should be able to identify these things. Students feel that they have not been silent. They have been, speaking out and feel like there's been no resolve. So that is the sentiment of the comments. I'm going to move us forward because we have some other questions. The next question goes to Dan. And Dan, there's a couple of questions I have for you from School of Fine or College of Fine Arts students. One is, what was the resolve of the School of Music issue regarding students who were negatively impacted by the concert of the Negro spirituals. So that was one question. There's several for you, Dan, so I'll let you respond to that one.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for that. In one of the events that was intentioned to be a diversity concert was not implemented as we had hoped. The outcomes were more negative than we had expected, and met with students in a variety of different ways. Candy and the provost also were involved with those conversations with students. As a result, that student diversity committee that I mentioned that we were forming, we actually started that process right before COVID hit. And now we're finishing that so that there is that student voice put in directly to the college. We're also going to make sure that in the selections of events, while we do have a student committee that oversees and votes on and recommends the monies that go towards these special events and guest artists. And as was the case in that one, we're going to make sure that in the future we have better representation on that committee, students of color and other diversity as well. And we make sure if there's any situations like that, that we thoroughly talk through and vet that process more carefully, so that we can try to avoid, that negative outcome. On the positive side of that did open up a lot of conversations and reveal some of the changes that we're now implementing as part of our plan going forward for diversity and inclusion. And so that is directly impacting that new plan that we're developing.
The next question for you, Dan, is why is the required curriculum of non-Western forms and styles only done by guest artists? So I guess they're asking, why isn't some of this curriculum done by full-time faculty?
That's a great question. It's one of those long traditional forms that we've inherited. We often teach the way we were taught, and a lot of our faculty, that's what they're comfortable doing, and that's what they know. So part in recognizing that their own expertise is in those different areas and wanting to address that, each of the areas often then will bring in guest artists and other experts to help augment what they're doing. But that's really kind of the short-term solution for us. Again, as part of our long-term plan that we're developing right now, is to overhaul the curriculum with that in mind. Is to encourage, again, we can't require because faculty are in charge of the curriculum, but to encourage, incentivize ways for the faculty to embed that non-Western, non-white focus that is so traditional in our curriculum, and to diversify it in all ways. Going forward. And this will be a 1 to 2 year or multiple year process that is definitely a part of what we're moving forward with our new plan.
Okay. And the next question for you, Dan, is will the music therapy program include courses on Black music and cultural and anti-racism?
I can't say for sure what the program will include. I just know they'll be part of that overall curriculum redesign as part of the School of Music. And I know that there's great interest, certainly in that faculty, in doing that. So I have to imagine they will be part of that along with everybody else.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Satish, this question goes to you. You mentioned that students in the College of Business take implicit bias training. Is this same training required for faculty and staff? And if so, how will faculty and staff be held accountable?
So actually, the person who was doing implicit bias training for one of the professors was doing it was one of the professors in our human resource department. So we have a department which actually teaches all these things. So we have had all search committees and others go through implicit bias training. What we want to do is, as we redo our undergraduate and graduate curriculum, make it required as a part of the curriculum. So there would be a course that you would take in the undergraduate program or the graduate program where you would actually go through this training. And that's what our plan is. And again, what we're trying to do is, when we have groups of students working on teams and projects in classroom, we want to make sure that these students understand that there is implicit bias that takes place when you evaluate other students on the team and other things, and bring this out. So when it comes to business education, these are issues they would address and have when they go to the workplace too. So you want to catch them early, train them early, so they're prepared to be successful executives in the workplace. And that's basically what the plan is. And so one of the things we'll have to do is, and we have had issues before where if there's an issue with the way they felt they were graded or evaluated in a class by their team, they go and talk to the faculty member. And then, I have a conversation with them. And we have had these, I'll be very upfront and frank, we've had these issues with diverse students working in teams. And that's the reason we have put that in there. That if you have a problem, we'll have a process in place too, where they can address it with the faculty member. And if it's not resolved at that stage, then it goes to the chair of the department, and the chair of the department can look at it. So, we're serious about this. I mean, and we will implement it.
There's a question as to why we don't have a student moderating if we're supposed to have a student moderator. This is our first time through, and because of new technology, I am asking the questions because I have the visibility for them. We can look at in the future sessions if we could possibly have it so that the student moderator, who is Emma this time, will be able to see the questions and the student can be able to ask them. So for the students who are asking that question, that is why. For the student who asked the question, why are the panelists all white? They are not all white. And the panelists happen to be because these are the academic administrators at both schools. And so this is who they happen to be. And these are the folks who are the decision makers, and that's why the panel looks as it does. The panel is not an exclusion. It is working with the administrators that we have. So hopefully that will suffice those two questions. And so we'll continue on with some other questions. The next question is actually can be asked of both institutions. When will ADA non-compliant buildings and structures be made compliant with ADA requirements?
Well, what I can say, Dr. McCorkle, is that all facilities-related items are part of facilities master plan that's currently being updated to identify those areas that need to be visited to assure ADA compliance, knowing that the Valley, just like WMU is committed to adhering to that and making all measures necessary for ADA accessibility across our campus.
Anyone from WMU?
I would agree with Dr. Linden. We have a campus master plan and had plans to renovate some buildings that unfortunately also one of our largest classroom buildings that fell by the wayside with state funding as a result of COVID. So we have a plan, and we are working to follow our campus master plan that includes upgrades and updates to our facilities.
The next question, again, can go to both institutions. And I think, Patty, this might be in your area, and Jim, you might have to take it for WMU. Is there any plans in order to increase the diversity in nursing programs? Has there been any thought to a more holistic admissions process than just on GPA?
That is what I can address it. That is what I talked about, unless this person didn't hear my little talk. We are currently exploring moving to a holistic admission process. And I agree. And many other schools of nursing in the United States and in the state of Michigan are also looking at that. And that is an admission process that looks at the whole person in addition to GPA grades. It is we're just beginning to explore that. So, I mean, hopefully we'll have it implemented within the next couple years.
And I find myself in dangerous territory when I speak for my deans. I know my 3 deans, I can see their faces, so hopefully they're smiling. Our School of Nursing is committed to inclusivity, and I know has several programs in place. I can't speak to the specificity of those programs, but we'll text our dean to see if I can gather a little bit more information. But I know that that is a cornerstone of our College of Health and Human Services values that they live and are working towards. So I will not speak without information, and we'll see if I can get that.
I could add one other thing. The Association for Colleges of Nursing, who's I believe your accrediting agency, they are recommending this move, and so it's really in the forefront.
Okay. The next question is for WMU. How has the decrease of graduate assistants impacted minority students?
I'll go ahead and take that one. Sorry, I was doing the text. So as we move forward with a slightly smaller budget than we had before, we have needed to pull back in certain key areas across the institution. Unfortunately, one of those is support for graduate students. But we have not fully deployed the cuts that may be necessary, and we have, in many cases, several of our units have not entirely reduced a graduate assistantship. They might have cut it in half, and so we are looking at the impact of these across our campus, and don't yet know the impact on different populations. We do know the impact on colleges and on units within colleges, but haven't looked because the way that the colleges are handling these large cuts do differ based on the types of programs they have, whether they have master's or doctoral students. And so we're working to analyze that now as we also try to understand who's able to come to campus and study with us as we make plans for fall. So it's very much in flux. And I'd invite my deans to qualify or contextualize anything that I said.
I guess I can add just a little bit to that. The cuts right now that we're looking at are being implemented unit by unit. And as Provost Bott said, not all of those have been fully implemented yet. One of the areas we know we're losing students right now is international students, because many of them are having trouble getting visas and are concerned about traveling to the US or unable to travel to the US, most likely for fall. And so we are anticipating some decreases, especially among the international student population. I suspect that's true in the other colleges as well. But beyond that, we haven't completed those budget reductions yet, so we don't know what the full impact is going to be and how that might impact our demographics. But we are being very careful about that too.
We have a small graduate program, and it's only in music. And so far as Provost Bott mentioned, we've been able to handle the cuts that we're facing at this point through reductions of the size of the assistantship. We haven't actually impacted any actual student numbers.
One thing I'll also add is that for our international students, the decision on how we deliver instruction will have a significant impact on their ability to obtain a student visa. The federal government requires in-person hybrid classes. All of the course can be taken online for our students who are from other countries, and so that we have a lot of students who are concerned about being able to come and then stay. I should also, while I have the mic just for a moment, I did get some more information about our holistic advising, and we are implementing that currently in our nursing program, our physician's assistants program, our social work program, and are planning to expand that into occupational therapy as well as speech, language, and hearing sciences, all within our College of Health and Human Services. So thanks for the assist on that too, Patty.
Oh, I just want to talk about graduate assistantships in the College of Business. We don't have a doctorate program. Our largest master's program is an MBA, which is aimed at the working professionals. So if you look at the number of graduate assistants that the Hayward College of Business gets, is you could count them in one hand. So that's the way it is. Yeah.
Well, we have a significant number of questions, and I'm not sure if we're going to get through all of them, but I hope we will. This is a question is, what are the schools doing to diversify their faculty and staff in order to better reflect the diversity of their student population?
Well, at the Valley, we are expanding, casting a wider net, so to speak, to reach a larger audience in terms of being more deliberate and reaching that pool of candidates when we do recruit. We're also making an effort to diversify our search committees at the same time, knowing that in order for there to be diversity reflected in the classroom and the curricula that we teach, that a diverse faculty is a large part of that. So there are very proactive measures in terms of the recruitment piece and in terms of the internal piece, in terms of the search committee composition, as well as the training that goes into search committees as well at the same time.
So at Western, Carla talked about two of our institutional efforts under the Advance and Aspire iChange Network grants. In addition to that, we do have training for our search committees. And another initiative that unfortunately, again, COVID has impacted our ability to do is around, and actually at Carla's college, is around cluster hiring. And so when you can hire in clusters, you go beyond traditional micro disciplines, you can hire more broadly, and that tends to generate a more diverse application pool because you are looking at a variety of affiliated disciplines and not just one discipline. And so we had started that. I think that was my first year here. Carla had started that, and then unfortunately now we're in a different fiscal environment. So certainly are looking at how to deploy those resources as effectively as possible. Another area that we're very excited to learn more about and potentially partner is part of the USC, the University of Southern California's PRISM program. It's out of their Center for Race and Equity. And in that program, you can partner with the national organization to find more diverse pools. And so we've been working with many schools in the Mid-American Conference to see about their experiences with PRISM, figure out how many searches we think we'll have over the next several years, and then partner, because we know that we have certainly diverse, we have identified places to reach diverse audiences, but it's not enough. And so the PRISM program allows us greater opportunity to reach nascent students or nascent professionals and get them here.
Okay, thank you. The next question goes to WMU, and this is looking at efforts to make sure we are including international students, especially as we move into the fall, with many of them not being able to return. The second part of that is many international students depend on working on campus because they cannot work off campus, and oftentimes are finding jobs on campus that are at minimum wage. So how is that equitable to them? And also, how are we making sure we're going to be inclusive of our international population who may not be able to return to campus physically in the fall?
Those are really excellent questions, and we're working now to create a portfolio of courses to deliver for fall. Trying to keep in mind as many constituencies as possible: online courses, hybrid courses, students who are on campus, ensuring that they have access to buildings that are safe, making sure that our safety practices are equitable, administered equitably and consistently. And so those are all questions that we have. Certainly on the latter half, or those are questions we have and we're working to solve them. I should make that cut out. On the latter half of the question, I think work on campus is going to be largely determined by what we're able to do on campus. As we have said repeatedly, we will be open, but what open means and the breadth of services and how they're delivered will largely be determined by disease progression and ability to open safely all of our services. So that also is in flux. But I will say that we are very shortly, as we've worked with our fall contingency planning group, and their work is winding down. We will certainly, or we're planning to send shortly a survey to our current and prospective students to understand their preferences for, concerns about a return to campus. And it's our hope that once we get that data back, we'll be able to like these conversations, start to address those in a meaningful way.
Okay, our next question goes to Dr. Koretsky. It's two questions. First question is, will WMU consider developing an Asian study program as it has with its Africana and African Studies program? And also, what is happening with gender and women's studies program?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer those. And maybe I'll start with the Gender and Women's Studies program, because there was a lot of information, I think, on social media about that. Gender and Women's Studies has a new chair starting July 1st. She is a longstanding member of the faculty. Lonnie Nash is her name. Gender and Women's Studies is a strong and excellent program, really important curricula, well-subscribed courses. It's a healthy program, and I anticipate that it will continue to be healthy and strongly enrolled. So there's really, I think there's been some concern that Gender and Women's Studies was somehow slated for elimination or wasn't slated to have a chair, and that's incorrect. And so I'm happy to correct the record on that. It's a great program, and I'm happy to support it. With respect to the first question about Asian studies, yes, I think that's an excellent suggestion. We do have some area studies minors. We do have some strength in Asian studies. We will be looking at all of those kinds of programs this fall. In fact, I had a proposal come forward only about 2 weeks ago, looking at Asian studies and how we could really bring together some of the strengths and also programmatics curricula around Asian studies. So I expect we'll be doing more on that. I hope that we will. And I think we do have some really strong expertise there. I also, just while I've got the mic, I wanted to address Taylor's question in the chat, which is, for people in positions of power, what steps are you taking to educate yourself on white privilege and racial disparities for Black and Brown people? Just because I think it's such an important question. And I think the answer is, for me personally, I am always trying to educate myself on that. I will never educate myself enough on that. There's no limit to that. In terms of some of the sort of action steps that I've taken, I do my best to attend workshops, to bring in facilitators from lots of different backgrounds, both to Western, and also when I go to the National Council of College of Arts and Sciences Dean's meeting, I always attend all of the workshops and things that are really focused on disparities and white privilege, because I do think it's a really important problem for leaders of a predominantly white institution to understand, and especially as a white person, I can never learn enough about this. I also have attempted to bring people, as I've said, to work with chairs and directors. We've had facilitators, we've done common book reads. I think it's not a one and done. This is something that we have to continuously be working on. We have to actively be working on all the time. And I think a lot of the other deans at Western feel the same way. I know the provost feels that way. And so I just wanted to take the chance to say that, because I think it's really important.
And Dr. Koretsky, I'm glad you brought that up. We have a couple of questions in the chat, not the live chat, but we have some WFA students who are with the panelists. And one of the questions, and I will take this one, it asks, why is the building for disability student services so far from the center of campus with very minimal parking? I had that same question when I came to campus. It took me 3 weeks to find where that building was. We are looking for space to relocate disability student services so that it is more accessible, both the space itself and with adequate parking. But that, I think it ended up, and it was there before I got there. I'm assuming it was where we had space, and that's where it ended up. Realizing that the space is not accessible It is not the most useful for the students we serve. And so we are looking at space more central to campus with adequate parking and accessibility for students. The other question, Dan, this can go to you. I'm assuming that's what it was because you spoke about, well, it could go to either you or Carla. You both spoke about your diversity committees. The question is, what is the diversity within that committee, on that committees? So if you both will address that.
Yeah, in my committee, it's meant to be as diverse as we can get from across the college. Certainly the focus initially has been on people of color, but in our college, LGBT, transgender students are a growing population as well. And so we want to make sure we represent voices of all students in our college.
So I think Dan was talking about a student committee, a newly formed student committee. We have a standing committee of faculty and staff. It's a rotating membership, so the diversity of that committee does change from year to year. One of the things that we looked at and thought was problematic is that there's not enough of a student voice on that committee. And so we've been more deliberate in bringing in representation, especially from diverse RSOs, to come into meetings periodically, meet with that committee, help to set the charges for the year, talk about what some of the issues are that students are facing so that we can also be looking at that within the Diversity and Inclusion Committee in Arts and Sciences. But I think that is an excellent question and one where we have to really be looking at that.
I just want to add that my diversity and inclusion committee is like Carla's. Yeah.
I will allow for the rest of the panel to answer the question that Carla spoke to on the chat, because I think it was addressed to all. And it was, what are you as individuals doing to educate yourselves on white privilege and racial disparities for Black and Brown people?
Well, speaking for myself, it's my professional history is such that nearly the first 20 years of my career in higher education was spent in the inner city of Chicago as a full-time faculty member at HBBCU. And that has left an indelible mark on me that continues to this day by virtue of the fact that to this day I serve as a mentor for middle school students of color and providing educational support. During my time in the inner city of Chicago, working there and actually acting as a faculty supervisor, overseeing student teachers out in the field on both the south and west sides of Chicago, that has stayed with me. It stayed with me to the fact that this very day in the work that I do, it informs much of what I do by way of those interactions and building those relationships. So that's, here again, speaking for myself personally, that is something that's still very much integrated part of my professional life as well as my personal life.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Brown, and I have personally gone through a lot of experiences. My kids have gone through experiences, so I think I kind of have an idea as to what are some of the issues that people of color do face, both in educational institutions and in the society. And if you can name it, either someone in my family or me have gone through it.
I would echo from my own personal experiences what Carla said. Is this is for me an ever growing, expanding knowledge, experience, research, understanding, asking questions. As a young man that came out of a very white community in Vermont growing up, first kid to go to college, my experiences with people of color were virtually non-existent until I went to college, and my first roommate was a Black student from Connecticut. And that first semester was one of the most wonderful learning experiences of my life, and understanding a whole different perspective and what college brought. I find that is what I'm going through in trying to address these things and understand better myself. My 14-year-old son is part of that experience with me. And I'm finding that if I had had that kind of guidance at a much earlier age, that would have would have helped me a lot along the way as an understanding my privilege as a white man. And certainly that I'm still exploring that, and I'm hoping to bring him along to that understanding in a much earlier place in his life.
This is Jen, and like my colleagues, I've spent a lot of time reflecting and being quite intentional about developing an understanding in a space that I won't have personal knowledge. And to do that, I've been reading, I've been consuming information from a variety of people and platforms that allow for truth to be told, and for me to hear the truth, feel the truth, and reflect on the privilege that I have and my responsibility in shaping institutions that are quite by intention anti-racist. And one of the things that's been valuable, one of the many things that's been valuable, is listening to our students' experiences, both over the last several weeks, but over the last 2 years here at Western. Our students are incredibly generous in sharing very difficult things and challenge me to be a better voice for them and the systems that maintain inequity. And so I continue and invite them, all of the students listening, to continue to help us. It's not their responsibility to help us, but through their stories, we can see the top layer and the bottom layer of the problem, and that helps spur action.
If I may just kind of briefly expand upon what I shared, part of my own journey or experience as I continue to learn and grow in this area was informed by virtue of the fact, like I'm assuming some of our students that are with us today, I was a first generation college student in my family, and also first generation American. Both of my parents are immigrants. So it was a rather different approach and journey, but it was one that helped in that pathway to be able to be in relationship with and working alongside students of color, and working in the throes of those neighborhoods that I worked as a professional. And so that was a valuable asset in terms of my part of the journey professionally. There's those two added attributes by virtue of the fact that I was first generation college student in my family, as well as the son of immigrant parents.
If no one else is wanting to answer, I have a couple more. This one is a very poignant question, and it's been asked. I'm going to read it directly. It says, one of the things missing from this discussion is the tete-for-tete discourse from these different than us. This is to avoid the weakness of echo chambers. So how will faculty facilitate in this process so this is not just us talking to be talking? So helping us not only listen, but also challenge our own biases. But the question is really, how are faculty going to participate in this?
Well, it starts with groups like this and then spreads by way of what I refer to as the multiplication role. Trice and I have had these conversations already. I've started to have these conversations with our deans. And as a matter of fact, we have a gathering with Trice and the leadership, the academic leadership of our college planned for next week. But Dr. McCorkle, the point you bring up is so important by way of the student feedback. And so what will it be? What will be the outcomes of these conversations? What tangible outcomes? What will be the actionable steps that will result from these? And the session that is planned next week with Trice and the academic deans is going to provide that as it speaks to the needs of our students within at the Valley. So we look forward to that time together, and not only encourage this conversation, but also what deliverable, actionable steps will result from that will benefit the college community and our students as well.
We have a variety of faculty who are really active and have been for years within the community on racial equity. And so being able to continue to support them and uplift and learn, but also help in expanding that work and showing the value that what they're doing within the community is also something within the college that we value and continue to support that. There's a lot of great expertise within our own walls. And so knowing that we have that and valuing it and supporting it and pushing that forward is part of our daily call.
Right. It's part of our daily experience.
So I think that's a really excellent question. I share the concern, and one of the concerns I have about things like diversity workshops that are sign up is that you see the same people signing up and you don't see that you reach everyone who needs to really learn and hear the message. And so I think one of the things that I'm hoping we'll be able to do with the Advance and the Aspire work is really institutional level change, systemic change, where we start to look at how do we bring bias training and embed it in everything that we do. You know, how do we change our hiring practices and our retention and promotion practices through an equity lens that is institutionalized. I really appreciate what Satish said about including bias work in the curriculum so that every student is really being trained and is aware of this. And so I think it's thinking about how do we make systemic change. It's slow and it's hard, but I think it's the only way that we reach everyone. And so that's what I'm hoping that we can work toward. With respect to some of those programs I mentioned, you know, we are going to be creating, you know, implementation plans with timelines and specific actions. I think we need to stop talking and start doing. And I think a lot of us really recognize that. So I think there's a critical mass of people who want to see this happen, and we will keep pushing to make it happen.
I'd like to add to that. In my experience at Kalamazoo Valley, when as an administrator, when we began to learn about the strategic plan and the focus and value of diversity, inclusivity, and equity, one of the things that I did in one of the programs was to make a group of faculty. They met every single month, and so we made it a part of each meeting to talk about equity and what it meant to people. And one of the first things that I realized was that, and these were people with a lot of experience, and even their definition of equity was, you know, I mean, this was a program where people felt equity means we have the same rules for everybody. And that is not what equity is. But anyway, it led to a lot of good conversation, and it led, I believe, to a real change in behavior, and where we were able to, people could understand and reach out to help students in need. So I think getting it back out of this group to teachers depends on us taking it back and making it a central focus.
I have a couple more questions. One is, I had responded to the question about why is the panel all white? And a student came back with a very interesting, not necessarily a question, but an observation of, because the panel is all white, this raises the question, are the institutions going to look at that and see that, oh, maybe we do need to make some changes so that when we look at our administrators, it is a more diverse people. And so I thought that was a poignant observation by a student. This next question is one that I think is very interesting. And the student is listening to us talking about efforts to increase our recruitment of students of color. The question is, if we're going to increase that and admit more, what are we doing to support the students when they come to our campuses? And helping to remove barriers.
Yeah, that's been a huge push for us at Valley. So the recruitment is just one piece of the holistic approach. So with our work with the Gardner Institute in Nakata, as we look at the course redesign through the Gateways to Completion that Carl and I talked about, as well as the Excellence in Academic Advising, those are pieces to it. The Guided Pathways kind of for us is the overarching umbrella. Within that, we also are working with a few state initiatives with financial stability and connection of resources and identifying how we can bring resources to the campuses and how to better identify and support. So I think there are, for us, I know for sure that we're looking at that whole trajectory. It's important to get into the door, but it's just as important to us that you are having a good experience and you are on your path and you're successful in your path and you get to graduation and you're successfully moving into your career, into your transfer institution. So when we are now looking at initiatives, we're looking at it holistically. That does this help with recruitment? Does it help us connect? But also does it help us in that retention and graduation piece as well?
I'd like to add to that. You know, I worked at another community college in Michigan for 30 years, and I'm really appreciative that I retired and came back to work. But Kalamazoo Valley has so many services for students. It is really, truly impressive. And it comes down, and I support what Paige just offered too, but I think what it really comes down to is the development of a relationship with students early on, so as someone mentioned before, so that they can approach, they can be confident, they can be at ease to share their needs and their barriers. And I think we're working on that to be understood across our institution. And once the needs are brought to the surface, we have multiple supports, different supports to help those students succeed.
I can speak on behalf of my colleagues at Western and the deans. I know we're all very close, and I know how they feel about recruiting and retention of all students, but particularly those of color and international and so forth. I was a college dropout for almost never went back to college after I dropped out. And for me, it's a very personal thing. And so when I got here, our efforts and goals were already well established in the arts. That's an ingrained and centralized part of what we do is recruiting. Retaining wasn't as good as we wanted. We've been able to be over 90% the last 2 years of all our students, not just the freshmen, everybody. And again, that's a team effort from the entire college, staff, faculty, everybody involved. And I think that's, again, at a very central part. Yet we know that for our students of color in particular, but others as well, that this is a challenge still, and that we need to have more faculty and staff that look like them, represent them, and they can mentor them and be engaged with them. And we know we need to continue to do that. So while we've done a good job and across the university at Western have done a good job that way, we all know we need to do that as well.
All right, the time is 4:36, so I believe it's probably about time to conclude this panel. I want to thank all our lovely panelists for being a part of this today. We appreciate you answering all the questions that are provided, and on behalf of everyone, we highly recommend you check out all the students' comments and questions in the comment sections, and we will also make those available to you after the panel. So I really want to speak out to the students here on behalf of the student panelists and of Western Student Association. If you are coming to view this video later on, please comment. Please always reach out to us and let us know what we can do to help you connect to faculty and students. This is called communities in collaboration, right? And there's so many people that are a part of our community. We're a bigger Kalamazoo community. We're a community of faculty and staff and administrators, and we're also a community of students. And all together we form one big WMU community, KVCC KVCC community, Kalamazoo community. And I really believe true conversation like this really facilitates a lot of great things. So students, reach out to people with questions. This is a hard time for everyone right now, and communication is really going to push us forward. Please use Western Student Association as your resource. We're here for you. So yeah, we want to thank you all for your time, to students, to panelists, all for being here, and we look forward to more events like this in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you much.
Thank you.